The courtroom went dead silent as the billion-dollar heiress pointed across the room at the exhausted single father in the cheap jacket and said 5 words that made every attorney freeze. "He's the only one who saw me." Nobody understood what she meant. Not yet. But in 60 seconds, the most powerful family in Chicago was about to collapse. And it all started because one broke man left coffee in the snow for a stranger he thought had nothing. If you want to see how a small act of kindness destroyed an empire and saved 2 broken lives, stay with me until the end. And hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Nathan Cole's alarm went off at 3:47 in the morning, same as it did every single day, and he slapped it silent before the noise could wake his son in the next room. The apartment was freezing. The landlord kept promising to fix the heating, but promises didn't mean much in a building this old, in a neighborhood this forgotten. Nathan sat up in the dark, his back aching from the crooked mattress, and pulled on 2 layers of shirts before reaching for his work jacket. He could hear the wind screaming outside, battering the windows with snow that hadn't stopped falling in 3 days. Chicago winters didn't care if you were ready. They just came at you hard and didn't let up until they were good and done. Nathan moved quietly through the apartment, checking the thermostat, even though he already knew it was busted. 48 degrees inside. He grabbed an extra blanket from the closet and tucked it around his son's bed, careful not to wake him. 6-year-old Jamie was curled up under a pile of covers, his small face peaceful in sleep, one hand clutching the stuffed bear that used to belong to his mother. Nathan stood there for a moment, just watching him breathe. Some mornings, that was the only thing that kept him going. He made it to the kitchen and started the coffee maker, the only appliance in the place that worked reliably. While it brewed, he pulled together Jamie's lunch for school: peanut butter sandwich, apple slices, a juice box, and a granola bar. He'd learned to stretch groceries further than he ever thought possible. There was a science to being broke. You figured it out fast or you didn't eat. The coffee finished. Nathan poured it into a travel mug, pulled on his jacket and gloves, and headed for the door. He paused, glanced back at the apartment one more time, then stepped out into the hallway. Mrs. Grabowski from 3C was already up, shuffling toward the stairs with her laundry basket. She gave him a tired nod. "Cold one today, Nathan. Every day lately." "You working a double again?" "Just the morning shift. I'll be back before Jamie's bus gets here." "Oh, what?" She shook her head. "You're a good father. That boy's lucky." Nathan didn't feel lucky. He felt like he was drowning in slow motion. He took the stairs down, pushed through the building's front door, and stepped into the brutal wind. The cold hit him like a fist. Snow swirled in the streetlights, turning everything into a gray blur. Nathan pulled his hood up and started walking. The cafe was 15 blocks away, and the buses didn't run this early. He'd gotten used to the walk. It gave him time to think. Sometimes that was good. Most of the time it wasn't. He passed the shuttered storefronts, the broken streetlights, the cars buried under snow that hadn't moved in weeks. This part of the city didn't get plowed first. It didn't get plowed at all unless someone complained loud enough, and even then it took days. Nathan kept his head down and kept moving. By the time he reached Rosie's Cafe, his fingers were numb inside his gloves. The cafe was a small corner spot tucked between a laundromat and a pawn shop, the kind of place that survived on regulars and reputation instead of location. Rosie Delgado had owned it for 30 years, and she'd hired Nathan 2 years ago when he'd walked in desperate and honest. He told her straight up that he had a kid, that he needed stable hours, and that he couldn't afford to lose another job. She'd looked at him for a long time, then handed him an apron. "You show up on time, you work hard, and you don't steal from me," she'd said. "We'll be fine." He hadn't missed a shift since. Nathan unlocked the back door and stepped into the cafe's kitchen. It was warmer inside, but not by much. Rosie was already there, prepping the morning pastries. She was a short, round woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and a voice like gravel. She didn't look up when Nathan walked in. "You're late." "It's 4:32. I'm early." "You're usually earlier." "Oh, Nathan pulled off his jacket and grabbed his apron. "Snow's bad." "Snow's always bad. Get the coffee started." He moved through the familiar routine without thinking, ground the beans, filled the industrial brewer, checked the milk supply, prepped the sandwich station. Rosie worked beside him in silence, pulling trays of croissants and muffins from the oven. They had a rhythm. 2 years of working side by side every morning had built something that didn't need words. At 5:15, Nathan took the trash out to the dumpster in the back alley. That's when he saw her for the first time. She was standing near the far corner of the alley, just outside the glow of the back door's light. A woman, maybe in her late 20s or early 30s, wearing a coat that looked expensive once but was now torn and filthy. Her hair was dark, tangled, hanging in her face. She wasn't moving, just standing there in the snow, staring at nothing. Nathan stopped. "You okay?" She didn't answer, didn't even look at him. He stepped closer, the trash bag still in his hand. "It's freezing out here. You need help?" Her eyes shifted toward him, just for a second. They were sharp, aware. Not the glazed look he'd seen on people who were high or drunk. She was present. She just wasn't talking. Nathan set the trash bag down. "There's a shelter about 6 blocks west. I can give you directions if you—" "I know where it is." Her voice was quiet, tired, but clear. "Then why aren't you there?" She didn't answer. Nathan stood there for a moment, cold wind cutting through his jacket, and then he made a decision that didn't make any sense. He turned, walked back into the cafe, poured a large coffee, grabbed a blueberry muffin from the tray Rosie had just pulled, and brought them both outside. The woman was still there. Nathan set the coffee and muffin on the edge of the dumpster. "You don't have to explain anything. Just take it." He went back inside before she could respond. Rosie looked at him when he walked in. "What were you doing out there?" "Nothing. You gave away food. It's 1 muffin." "Nathan." "She's freezing, Rosie." The older woman stared at him, then shook her head and went back to work. "You're too soft. That's your problem." Maybe she was right, but Nathan couldn't stop thinking about the woman's eyes. The way she'd looked at him like she was trying to figure out if he was real. He finished his shift at 8:30, walked home through the snow, and got back to the apartment just as Jamie's school bus pulled up outside. His son came running up the stairs, backpack bouncing, cheeks red from the cold. "Dad! Dad! We made snowmen at recess!" Nathan smiled. "Yeah? Was yours the best one?" "Obviously." They went inside. Nathan made mac and cheese for lunch while Jamie told him about his day in the chaotic, overlapping way 6-year-olds told stories. Nathan listened, asked questions, and tried not to think about the bills stacked on the counter or the overdue notices he'd shoved into a drawer. After lunch, Jamie sprawled on the couch with his coloring books, and Nathan sat at the kitchen table with his laptop, applying for second jobs he wouldn't get. He'd been doing this for months. Grocery stores, warehouses, delivery companies. Nobody wanted to hire someone who could only work nights and weekends because he had a kid to take care of during the day. His phone buzzed. A text from the hospital billing department. "Your payment plan is past due. Please contact us immediately to avoid collections." Nathan closed the text without responding. Jamie had been sick 2 years ago. Really sick. Pneumonia that turned into something worse, something that required a week in the ICU. And treatments Nathan still didn't fully understand. The insurance he'd had at the time covered some of it. Not enough. Not even close. The debt was $23,000. It felt like a weight tied around his neck, dragging him under every single day. He closed the laptop and rubbed his eyes. "Dad?" Nathan looked up. Jamie was standing in the doorway, clutching his bear. "Yeah, buddy. Are you sad?" Nathan's throat tightened. "No, just tired." "You're always tired." "I'm always working. That's different." Jamie walked over and climbed into his lap, something he didn't do as much anymore. Nathan wrapped his arms around him and held on. "I love you, Jamie." "Love you too, Dad." They sat like that for a long time. The next morning, Nathan went back to work at 4:30. Same routine, same cold, same walk through the dark streets. When he took the trash out at 5:15, the woman was there again. She was in the same spot, wearing the same ruined coat. This time she was sitting on the ground, her back against the brick wall, knees pulled up to her chest. Nathan didn't say anything. He just went back inside, made another coffee, grabbed a breakfast sandwich this time, and left it beside her. She looked up at him. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you're cold. You don't know me." "Don't need to." He went back inside. Rosie was waiting for him. "Nathan, you can't keep doing that." "It's just food. It's my food." "Then take it out of my paycheck. Rosie's expression softened, but she didn't back down. You don't make enough to be giving it away. I know. Then stop. I can't. They stared at each other. Finally, Rosie sighed and turned back to the oven. You're going to end up broke and homeless yourself, you stubborn idiot. Nathan didn't argue. She was probably right. But he kept doing it anyway. Every morning for the next 2 weeks, the woman was there. Nathan brought her coffee, food, sometimes a pair of dry socks or a scarf he'd grabbed from the donation bin at Jamie's school. He never asked her name, never asked where she came from or why she was out there. He just left the food and went back to work. She stopped questioning him after the 3rd day. She just nodded when he set things down. Once, she whispered, "Thank you." Nathan nodded back. That was enough. The winter kept getting worse. Temperatures dropped into the single digits. The snow piled higher. The city felt like it was shutting down, one frozen block at a time. Nathan's apartment stayed cold. Jamie started sleeping in Nathan's bed because it was warmer with both of them under the blankets. The bills kept coming. The hospital kept calling. Nathan kept walking to work in the dark. And every morning, the woman was there. Until one day, she wasn't. Nathan stepped out into the alley at 5:15 carrying the usual coffee and sandwich and found the space empty. No woman. No trace she'd ever been there. Just snow and wind and the dumpster. He stood there for a long moment, staring at the empty corner. Then he set the coffee and sandwich on the ground borrowed anyway, just in case she came back. She didn't. 3 days passed. Then 4. Nathan kept leaving food, but it went untouched. By the end of the week, he stopped bringing it. She was gone. Maybe she'd found a shelter. Maybe she'd left the city. Maybe something worse had happened. He didn't know. He told himself it didn't matter. He'd done what he could, but it bothered him more than he wanted to admit. On the 8th day after she disappeared, Nathan was working the counter when the cafe door opened and 3 people in expensive suits walked in. 2 men and a woman, all of them carrying leather briefcases and wearing the kind of shoes that cost more than Nathan's rent. Rosie looked up from the register. "Can I help you?" The woman in the front smiled. It was polite, but didn't reach her eyes. "We're looking for Nathan Cole." Nathan's stomach dropped. He stepped forward slowly. "That's me." The woman's smile widened. "Mr. Cole, my name is Rebecca Marsh. I'm an attorney with Whitmore and Lang. Do you have a moment to speak privately?" Nathan glanced at Rosie. She looked as confused as he felt. "I'm working. This won't take long." Rosie waved him toward the back. "Go. I'll cover the counter." Nathan led the 3 attorneys into the cafe's tiny break room. They didn't sit. Rebecca Marsh pulled a tablet from her briefcase and turned it toward him. "Mr. Cole, do you recognize this woman?" Nathan looked at the screen. It was a professional photograph. A woman in a tailored suit standing in front of a glass office building, smiling confidently at the camera. She looked polished, powerful, expensive. But Nathan recognized her eyes. "That's her," he said slowly. "The woman from the alley." Rebecca Marsh nodded. "Her name is Claire Whitmore. She's the CEO and majority shareholder of Whitmore Logistics, a company valued at just over $2 billion. Nathan stared at her. "What?" Ms. Whitmore has been embroiled in a legal battle with her brother, Marcus Whitmore, over control of the company. During that time, she was forced into hiding due to fraudulent claims about her mental stability and threats to her safety. For 3 weeks, she lived on the streets of this city while preparing her legal defense. Nathan's brain was struggling to catch up. "The woman I gave coffee to is a billionaire." "Correct." "Why the hell was she homeless?" One of the male attorneys spoke up. "Her brother froze her personal accounts and manipulated the company board to revoke her access to corporate resources. He's attempting to seize control of the company using fabricated evidence and falsified medical evaluations." Nathan sat down heavily in one of the break room chairs. "This is insane." Rebecca Marsh leaned forward. "Mr. Cole, you are the only person who helped Miss Whitmore during that time without knowing who she was. Your testimony could be critical in proving that she remained stable, compassionate, and mentally competent throughout the ordeal. We need you to testify in court." Nathan's mouth went dry. "I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a witness. I'm just a guy who gave her food." Exactly. That's what makes your testimony so valuable. You had no financial motive, no personal connection. You simply helped another human being. That sincerity is what we need. Mom, Nathan shook his head. I can't get involved in some billionaire legal war. I have a kid. I have a job. I can't. Mr. Cole, Rebecca said quietly, Ms. Whitmore asked for you specifically. She said you're the only person who saw her as human when she had nothing. She trusts you. Nathan looked at the photograph again. The polished, confident woman in the picture didn't look anything like the exhausted stranger in the alley. But the eyes were the same, sharp, aware, real. What happens if I say no? Then we lose a crucial piece of evidence, and Marcus Whitmore will likely succeed in stealing his sister's company. And if I say yes, Rebecca hesitated. Then you'll be entering a very dangerous situation. Marcus Whitmore has significant resources and no boundaries. If he perceives you as a threat, he will come after you. Nathan thought about Jamie, about the hospital bills, about the life he was barely holding together with duct tape and willpower. I need time to think. Rebecca handed him a business card. You have 24 hours. After that, we go to trial without you. The three attorneys left. Nathan sat in the break room for a long time, staring at the card in his hand. Rosie appeared in the doorway. What the hell was that about? Nathan told her everything. When he finished, Rosie was quiet for a long time. Then she said, You're going to help her, aren't you? I don't know. Nathan, I don't know, Rosie. This is crazy. This is way over my head. That woman was freezing in the snow and you gave her coffee every day for 2 weeks. You think you're going to walk away now? Nathan rubbed his face. I have a kid. I know. If this goes bad, it might, but you didn't help her because you thought she was rich. You helped her because she was cold. That means something. Nathan looked up at her. What if it means I'm an idiot? Rosie smiled sadly. Then you're an idiot with a good heart. World needs more of those. That night, Nathan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to Jamie breathe softly beside him. He thought about the woman in the alley, the way she'd looked at him with those sharp, tired eyes, the quiet thank you she'd whispered. He thought about what Rosie had said, about doing the right thing even when it didn't make sense. At 2:00 a.m., Nathan got out of bed, walked to the kitchen, and called the number on Rebecca Marsh's card. She answered on the second ring. Mr. Cole, I'll testify. There was a pause. Then, thank you. But I need a promise. What kind of promise? If this goes bad, if your client's brother comes after me, you protect my son. No matter what happens to me, Jamie stays safe. Rebecca's voice softened. You have my word. Nathan hung up. He stood in the dark kitchen, hands shaking, wondering if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. Outside, the snow kept falling. And somewhere in the city, in an office tower Nathan had never seen, Claire Whitmore sat alone in a conference room, staring at the photograph of the man who'd saved her without even knowing it. She didn't know if he'd agree to help, but she hoped. Because Nathan Cole was the only person in the entire city who'd seen her when she had nothing and decided she was still worth something. And that was the only kind of witness that could stop her brother from destroying everything she'd spent her life building. The trial was in 5 days. The morning after Nathan agreed to testify, he woke up with his stomach in knots. Jamie was already awake, sitting cross-legged on the floor playing with his toy cars, making quiet engine noises under his breath. Nathan watched him for a moment, trying to memorize the piece on his son's face before everything got complicated. Hey buddy, you want pancakes? Jamie looked up, grinning. Can we put chocolate chips in them? We don't have chocolate chips. Then why'd you ask if I wanted pancakes? Nathan couldn't help but smile. Fair point. How about toast? Toast is sad breakfast. Toast is what we've got. Jamie sighed dramatically and went back to his cars. Nathan got up, pulled on a sweatshirt, and headed to the kitchen. While the bread was toasting, his phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca Marsh. Meeting today at 2 p.m. Address below. Bring ID. Nathan stared at the message. The address was downtown. The kind of downtown where people wore $1,000 suits and didn't make eye contact with guys like him. He texted back a thumbs up emoji because he didn't know what else to say. After getting Jamie off to school, Nathan took the train downtown. He'd only been to this part of the city a handful of times, usually when he was younger and stupider and thought he might actually make something of himself. The buildings here were all glass and steel, reflecting the gray winter sky back at itself. People walked fast, talking into phones, carrying coffee cups that probably cost more than Nathan made in an hour. The address led him to a tower that stretched up so high he had to tilt his head back to see the top. The lobby was all marble and chrome, with a security desk that looked like it belonged in a spaceship. Nathan walked up to the guard, feeling completely out of place in his worn jacket and scuffed boots. "I'm here to see Rebecca Marsh." The guard looked him up and down. "Name?" "Nathan Cole." The guard checked his computer, then handed Nathan a visitor badge. 43rd floor, elevators are to your left." Nathan clipped the badge to his jacket and walked to the elevators. There were 6 of them, all with polished doors that reflected his nervous face back at him. He pressed the button and waited. When the elevator arrived, a woman in a pristine white coat stepped out, barely glancing at him as she passed. Nathan got in and hit the button for 43. The elevator moved so smoothly he barely felt it. 43 floors in what felt like 30 seconds. When the doors opened, Nathan stepped into a reception area that looked like something out of a magazine. Everything was white and silver, with floor-to-ceiling windows showing the city stretched out below. A woman sat behind a curved desk, typing on a computer. "Nathan Cole, for Rebecca Marsh." The receptionist smiled without warmth. "She's expecting you. Conference room C, down the hall, 3rd door on your right." Nathan followed her directions, his boots squeaking slightly on the polished floor. He found the conference room and knocked. Rebecca's voice called out, "Come in." Nathan opened the door. The conference room was massive, with a table that could have seated 20 people. Rebecca Marsh sat at one end with her tablet and a stack of files. Across from her sat the woman from the alley, except she didn't look anything like the woman from the alley anymore. Claire Whitmore sat in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Nathan's car used to be worth before it died. Her hair was pulled back, neat and professional. Her face was clean, makeup subtle but precise. She looked like she belonged in a boardroom making decisions that affected thousands of people. But her eyes were the same, sharp, tired, real. She stood when Nathan walked in. "Mr. Cole, thank you for coming." Nathan didn't know what to say, so he just nodded. Rebecca gestured to a chair. "Please, sit." Nathan sat. Claire sat back down across from him. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Finally, Claire said, "I owe you an explanation." "You don't owe me anything. I disagree." She folded her hands on the table. "You helped me when I had nothing. You didn't ask questions. You didn't expect anything in return. That's rare, especially in my world." Nathan shifted uncomfortably. "I just gave you coffee." "You gave me more than that." Claire's voice was quiet but firm. "You gave me proof that I wasn't invisible, that even when everything else was stripped away, I was still worth someone's kindness." Rebecca cleared her throat. "Mr. Cole, we need to prepare you for what's coming. The trial starts in 4 days. Marcus Whitmore's legal team is going to do everything they can to discredit you." "How do you discredit someone who just gave out food?" "They'll question your motives, your financial situation. They'll try to paint you as someone who helped Claire because you hoped for a reward." Nathan felt his jaw tighten. That's bullshit. It is, but it's also effective. Rebecca pulled a file from the stack and opened it. "They already know about your hospital debt, your late rent payments, the fact that you've applied for 17 jobs in the past 3 months and been rejected from all of them." Nathan's stomach twisted. How the hell do they know that? Because Marcus Whitmore has investigators who dig into anyone associated with his sister. They've been watching you since the moment we contacted you. Jesus. Claire leaned forward. "Mr. Cole, I need you to understand what you're walking into. My brother is not a good man. He spent the last 3 months destroying my reputation, freezing my assets, and turning the company board against me. He wants full control of Whitmore Logistics, and he's willing to ruin anyone who gets in his way." "Then why not just give it to him?" Nathan heard himself say. "Why fight this hard?" Claire's expression hardened. Because it's not his. My father built that company from nothing. He left it to both of us. But Marcus was supposed to manage operations while I handled strategy and growth. Instead, the moment our father died, Marcus started making moves to push me out. He falsified documents, bribed board members, and when I threatened to expose him, he had me declared mentally unfit. How do you declare someone mentally unfit? Rebecca answered. You pay psychiatrists to write reports claiming the person is unstable. You create incidents that look like breakdowns. You isolate them from anyone who might defend them. It's not legal, but it's hard to prove when the person doing it has money and connections. Nathan rubbed his face. This is insane. It's corporate warfare, Claire said. And right now, you're my best weapon. I'm not a weapon. I'm just a guy. Mruita. Exactly. That's why you matter. Claire's voice softened. Every other witness they'll call has something to gain or lose. You don't. You helped me because I was cold. That's the truth. And the truth is the only thing that can beat my brother's lies. Nathan looked at Rebecca. What do I have to do? Tell the truth. Answer the questions. Don't let them rattle you. She pulled out a legal pad. Let's start with the basics. How many times did you see Claire during those 3 weeks? 14 mornings, maybe 15. I didn't count. What did you give her? Coffee, food. A couple times I brought socks or a scarf. Did she ever ask for anything? No, never. Did you ever ask her for anything? No. Rebecca made notes. Did she tell you her name? No. Did you tell her yours? Nathan thought back. I don't think so. Good. That supports the narrative that your help was unconditional. Rebecca looked up. Did anyone else see you helping her? Wakiki. Rosie, my boss. She saw me take food out a few times. We'll need her testimony too. Rebecca wrote something down. Did Claire ever seem unstable or incoherent? Nathan shook his head. She seemed tired, sad maybe, but she wasn't crazy. Be specific. What made you think she wasn't crazy? Nathan tried to put it into words. Her eyes. She was present, aware. When she talked, she made sense. She just didn't say much. Claire spoke quietly. I was trying to stay invisible. The less I said, the less chance someone would recognize me. Nathan looked at her. Did it work? Until you started leaving me food every morning, yes. Sorry. Don't be. Claire met his eyes. You're the reason I'm still alive. The weight of that statement hung in the room. Nathan didn't know how to respond, so he didn't. Rebecca continued. Marcus's lawyers are going to argue that Claire manipulated you, that she knew who you were and targeted you specifically because you'd make a sympathetic witness. That's insane. She was homeless. She wasn't actually homeless, Rebecca said carefully. She was in hiding. There's a difference. Nathan felt something cold settle in his chest. Wait, what? Wait. Arke. Claire spoke. I had access to safe houses, places Marcus's investigators couldn't find, but I couldn't stay in them during the day because his people were monitoring every property connected to me or the company. So I stayed on the streets where I could disappear into crowds. Nathan stared at her. You had a place to go and you chose to freeze in an alley? I chose to survive. Claire's voice was steady. If I'd stayed anywhere Marcus could find me, I'd be in a psychiatric facility right now, drugged into compliance while he stole everything my father built. That's not the same as being homeless. You're right, it's not. Claire didn't look away. But the cold was real, the fear was real, and your kindness was real. That's what matters. Nathan stood up. I need a minute. He walked out of the conference room, down the hall, and found a bathroom. It was just as fancy as everything else, all black tile and automatic faucets. Nathan gripped the edge of the sink and stared at his reflection in the mirror. He thought he was helping someone who had nothing, someone like him, barely holding on, barely surviving. But Claire Whitmore had resources. She had safe houses and lawyers and $1 billion company waiting for her. She'd chosen to stand in that alley. She'd chosen to take his coffee and his pity while hiding the fact that she didn't actually need it. Nathan turned on the faucet and splashed cold water on his face. When he came back to the conference room, Claire and Rebecca were talking quietly. They stopped when he walked in. Nathan sat down. I'm still going to testify. Claire looked surprised. Even though you're angry? I'm not angry. I'm confused. You should be both. Nathan leaned back in his chair. You lied to me. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you the whole truth. That's the same thing. Maybe. Claire's expression didn't change. But I'm not going to apologize for surviving. I did what I had to do. By using me. By accepting help from the only person who offered it. Claire's voice sharpened. Do you think I planned this? Do you think I wanted to stand in an alley every morning waiting for a stranger to take pity on me? I was terrified. I was alone. And you were kind. That's all that happened. Nathan wanted to stay angry, but he couldn't, because she wasn't wrong. He had helped her. And whether she was secretly a billionaire or actually homeless didn't change the fact that she'd been cold and he'd brought her coffee. Okay, Nathan said finally. Okay. Rebecca looked between them. Are we good? We're good, Nathan said. Claire nodded. Thank you. Yeah. They spent the next 2 hours going over Nathan's testimony. Rebecca asked the same questions in different ways, teaching him how to stay calm under pressure, how to answer without volunteering extra information, how to recognize when a lawyer was trying to trip him up. By the end of it, Nathan's head was pounding. When they finally finished, Rebecca stood. The trial starts Monday at 9 a.m. Be at the courthouse at 8:30. Dress professionally, but don't try to look like something you're not. Jurors can smell fake. Nathan stood too. What happens if I mess this up? You won't. But if I do? Rebecca's expression softened slightly. Then Claire loses everything, and Marcus Whitmore becomes one of the most powerful men in Chicago. No pressure. None at all. Claire walked Nathan to the elevator. They stood in the hallway, surrounded by glass and steel and wealth Nathan couldn't even comprehend. I meant what I said earlier, Claire told him. You saved my life. I gave you coffee. It was more than that. She paused. I spent 3 weeks watching people walk past me like I didn't exist. Hundreds of people. Thousands, maybe. You were the only one who stopped. Nathan didn't know what to say to that. The elevator arrived. Nathan stepped in, then turned back. Why me? Claire smiled slightly. It was the first time he'd seen her smile, and it looked sad. Because you didn't see a billionaire or a homeless woman. You just saw someone who was cold. The elevator doors closed. Nathan rode down 43 floors, walked through the marble lobby, and stepped back out into the freezing Chicago afternoon. The city looked exactly the same as it had 2 hours ago. But Nathan felt like something fundamental had shifted. He took the train back to his neighborhood, picked Jamie up from school, and made dinner. Spaghetti with jarred sauce because it was cheap and Jamie liked it. While his son talked about his day, Nathan tried to focus, but his mind kept drifting to the courthouse, the trial, the impossible situation he'd agreed to walk into. After Jamie went to bed, Nathan sat at the kitchen table with a beer he couldn't really afford and stared at nothing. His phone buzzed, a text from a number he didn't recognize. This is Claire. Rebecca gave me your number. I know today was a lot. Thank you for not walking away. Nathan stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed back. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it because it's the right thing. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then appeared again. That's exactly why it matters. Nathan set his phone down and finished his beer. The next 3 days passed in a blur. Nathan worked his shifts at the cafe, took care of Jamie, and tried not to think about the trial. Rosie knew something was wrong, but she didn't push. She just worked beside him in silence, occasionally squeezing his shoulder when she walked past. On Sunday night, Nathan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to Jamie breathe, and tried to imagine what tomorrow would be like. He'd never been inside a courtroom before, never testified about anything, never had to stand in front of strangers and explain why he'd done something good without expecting anything in return. At 4 in the morning, he gave up on sleep and went for a walk. The streets were empty. the city quiet in that strange way it only got in the hours before dawn. Nathan walked without a destination, his breath fogging in the cold air, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. He ended up at the alley behind the cafe. The corner where Claire had stood every morning was just a patch of snow now, no trace that anyone had ever been there. Nathan stood in the same spot where he'd left food and coffee, and tried to remember what it had felt like to help someone without knowing the whole story. It had felt simple, easy, right. Nathan closed his eyes and held on to that feeling. When he opened them again, the sky was starting to lighten in the east. He went home, got Jamie ready for school, and put on the only suit he owned. It was old and didn't fit quite right anymore, but it was clean and that was the best he could do. He dropped Jamie off at Mrs. Grabowski's apartment downstairs because he had no idea how long this was going to take. "You look fancy," Jamie said. "Where are you going?" "Just a meeting." "About what?" Nathan knelt down so they were eye level. "About helping someone." Jamie nodded seriously. "You're good at that." Nathan's throat tightened. He hugged his son, holding on maybe a second longer than usual. "Be good for Mrs. Grabowski." "I'm always good." "Sure you are." Nathan stood, nodded to Mrs. Grabowski, and left before he could change his mind. The courthouse was downtown, not far from the tower where he'd met with Rebecca and Claire. It was an older building, all stone and columns, the kind of place that was built to intimidate people. Nathan climbed the steps, went through security, and found Rebecca waiting for him in the lobby. "You're early," she said. "I couldn't sleep." "Good. Neither could I." She handed him a bottle of water. "Drink this. Stay hydrated. When you're on the stand, take your time with answers. If you don't understand a question, ask them to repeat it. Don't volunteer information. You told me all this already. I'm telling you again." Rebecca's expression was serious. Marcus's lawyer is a man named Elliot Chen. He's very good at what he does, and what he does is destroy witnesses. He's going to try to make you angry. Don't let him. "I'll do my best." "Your best better be enough." They went upstairs to the courtroom. It was smaller than Nathan expected, with rows of wooden benches and a judge's bench that looked like it weighed 1,000 pounds. People were already filling the seats, lawyers, reporters, men and women in expensive suits who looked like they did this every day. Rebecca led Nathan to a bench near the front. "Wait here." Nathan sat. His hands were shaking, so he gripped his knees to make them stop. A door opened behind the judge's bench and Claire walked in with 2 other lawyers. She was wearing a navy suit, her hair pulled back, her expression calm and controlled. She didn't look at Nathan. She sat at the defense table and folded her hands. Another door opened and a man walked in who had to be Marcus Whitmore. He looked like Claire. Same sharp eyes, same strong jaw. But where Claire's face held something careful and guarded, Marcus looked confident, entitled. He wore a suit that probably cost $5,000 and a watch that glinted gold under the courtroom lights. He sat at the prosecution table and leaned back in his chair like he owned the room. Maybe he did. The bailiff stood. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Patricia Klein." Everyone stood. The judge entered, a woman in her 60s with gray hair and an expression that suggested she'd heard every lie in the world and believed none of them. She sat. Everyone else sat. "We're here today," Judge Klein said, "to hear testimony regarding the mental competency and fitness of Claire Whitmore to maintain her position as CEO of Whitmore Logistics. Mr. Chen, you may call your first witness." Elliot Chen stood. He was younger than Nathan expected, maybe 40, with silver-rimmed glasses and a voice that carried without shouting. "Your Honor, the prosecution calls Dr. Gregory Hall." A man in his 50s walked to the stand. He was sworn in, stated his credentials, and then spent 20 minutes explaining how he'd evaluated Claire Whitmore and determined she was suffering from acute stress disorder, paranoid delusions, and an inability to make rational decisions. Rebecca cross-examined him. "Dr. Hall, how many times did you actually speak with Ms. Whitmore?" "Once." "Once, for how long?" "Approximately 40 minutes. And based on 40 minutes, you determined she was mentally unfit to run a billion-dollar company." "I determined she was experiencing significant psychological distress that impaired her judgment." "Did Ms. Whitmore seem coherent during your evaluation?" Yes, but did she answer your questions appropriately? Yes, but did she demonstrate understanding of her situation? Dr. Hall hesitated. Yes. No further questions. The morning continued like that. Marcus's side called witnesses who claimed Claire had been erratic, unstable, paranoid. Rebecca tore them apart, one by one, exposing inconsistencies and biases and financial connections to Marcus. At noon, Judge Klein called a recess for lunch. Nathan stood in the hallway outside the courtroom, trying to eat a sandwich Rebecca had brought him. His stomach was too tight to swallow much. Claire approached. "You're up after lunch." "I know." "You'll be fine. You keep saying that." "Because it's true." Claire looked at him closely. "You're not alone in this. Remember that." Nathan wanted to believe her. When court resumed, Rebecca stood. "Your Honor, the defense calls Nathan Cole." Or Nathan's legs didn't want to move, but he made them. He walked to the stand, put his hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. Then he sat down and looked out at the courtroom full of strangers. Rebecca smiled at him. "Mr. Cole, how do you know Claire Whitmore?" "I gave her coffee." "Can you elaborate?" "No." Nathan took a breath. "I work early mornings at a cafe. 3 weeks ago, I saw a woman standing in the alley behind the building. She was freezing. So I brought her coffee and food. I did that for about 2 weeks." "Did you know who she was?" "No." "Did she tell you?" "No." "Did you expect anything in return?" "No. She was cold. That's all that mattered." Rebecca nodded. "During those 2 weeks, did Ms. Whitmore ever seem unstable or incoherent to you?" "No, she seemed tired, maybe scared, but not crazy." "How did you know she wasn't crazy?" Nathan thought about it. "Because she looked at me like she understood what was happening. She knew where she was. She knew why I was helping. She just didn't explain herself. And I didn't ask." "Thank you, Mr. Cole." Rebecca sat down. Elliot Chen stood up. Nathan's stomach dropped. "Mr. Cole," Chen said, walking slowly toward the stand, "you work at a cafe making minimum wage, is that correct?" "Yes." "And you're a single father?" "Yes." "You have significant medical debt from your son's hospitalization 2 years ago?" "Yes." "In fact, you owe $23,000 to Northwestern Memorial Hospital, and you're currently 3 months behind on payments. Is that accurate?" Nathan's jaw tightened. "Yes." Chen smiled slightly. "So it's fair to say you're struggling financially." "I'm managing." "Are you?" "You've applied for 17 jobs in the past 3 months and been rejected from all of them. Your rent is late. Your utilities are behind. You're barely surviving." Rebecca stood. "Objection? Relevance?" "I'm establishing motive, Your Honor." Judge Klein looked at Nathan, then at Chen. "Overruled. But get to the point, Mr. Chen." Chen turned back to Nathan. "Mr. Cole, isn't it true that you helped Ms. Whitmore hoping she'd reward you financially once you learned who she was?" "No." "You didn't know she was a billionaire?" "Not until her lawyers showed up at the cafe." "But once you knew, you agreed to testify. Convenient timing, don't you think?" Nathan felt heat rising in his chest. "I agreed to testify because she asked. Because she offered you money. No one offered me anything." "Well, really?" Chen pulled a paper from his folder. "Your Honor, I'd like to submit into evidence a financial analysis showing that Mr. Cole's hospital debt was paid in full 2 days ago. $23,000, paid by a charitable foundation controlled by Claire Whitmore." The courtroom erupted. Nathan's stomach dropped through the floor. He stared at Claire, who looked stricken. Rebecca was on her feet, objecting, but Nathan couldn't hear the words over the roaring in his ears. Judge Klein banged her gavel. "Order, Miss Marsh, did you know about this payment?" Rebecca looked shaken. "No, Your Honor." "Miss Whitmore?" Claire stood. "Your Honor, the payment was made by my foundation's director without my knowledge or approval. I was not aware until this moment." Chen smiled. "How convenient." Chen smiled. "How?" "Your foundation pays off your star witness's debt without your knowledge. Your Honor, this is clear witness tampering. but that you should spam the. It's not tampering if I didn't know about it, Claire said sharply. Judge Klein looked at Nathan. Mr. Cole, did you know your debt had been paid? Nathan's voice came out rough. No, I had no idea. Did anyone contact you about it? No. Chen jumped in. Your Honor, whether Mr. Cole knew or not is irrelevant. The payment was made specifically to ensure his favorable testimony. This witness has been compromised. Judge Klein was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I'm going to recess until tomorrow morning. Ms. Marsh, you and Ms. Whitmore will meet with me in chambers immediately. Mr. Cole, you're dismissed for now, but don't leave town. The gavel came down. Nathan sat frozen in the witness stand as the courtroom descended into chaos. Reporters were already typing on their phones. Marcus Whitmore was leaning back in his chair, smiling. Claire was arguing with Rebecca, her voice low and urgent. Nathan finally stood and walked out of the courtroom on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. In the hallway, he pulled out his phone and called the hospital billing department. A woman answered on the third ring. This is Nathan Cole. I need to know if my account has been paid. Keys clicked. Yes, Mr. Cole. Your balance is 0. Payment was received on Friday. Who paid it? I can't disclose that information. Can you tell me if it was a foundation? More clicking. The payment came from the Whitmore Family Foundation. Is there a problem? Nathan hung up without answering. He stood in the hallway, surrounded by lawyers and reporters and people who lived in a world he'd never understand, and realized he'd just been used. Not by Claire directly, maybe not even on purpose, but he'd been used all the same. His phone buzzed, a text from Rebecca. We need to talk. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Nathan texted back. I'm done. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Please. One more conversation. That's all I'm asking. Nathan stared at the message. Then he turned off his phone, walked out of the courthouse, and headed for the train station. He needed to get home. He needed to see Jamie. He needed to figure out what the hell he was going to do. Now that his testimony had been destroyed before he'd even finished giving it, behind him, in the courtroom, Claire Whitmore sat alone at the defense table and watched her case fall apart. And across the room, Marcus Whitmore smiled. Nathan didn't go home right away. He rode the train past his stop, staring out the window at the gray city sliding by, trying to make sense of what had just happened. $23,000. Gone. Just like that. The debt that had been crushing him for 2 years, the weight that had kept him awake every night, paid off by someone he'd helped without even knowing her real name. He should have felt relief. Instead, he felt sick. By the time he finally got off the train and walked back to his apartment, it was almost dark. Mrs. Grabowski met him at the door with Jamie, who ran straight into Nathan's arms. Dad! Mrs. Grabowski made pierogies. Nathan held his son tight, breathing in the smell of his shampoo. That's great, buddy. Mrs. Grabowski looked at Nathan's face and didn't ask questions. He was good, looked at. We'll do it again anytime. Thank you. She patted his arm and shuffled back to her apartment. Nathan carried Jamie inside, set him down, and went straight to the kitchen. He opened the freezer, pulled out the bottle of cheap vodka he kept hidden behind the frozen vegetables, and poured himself a glass. Jamie appeared in the doorway. You never drink that stuff. Today's different. Why? Nathan downed half the glass. It burned going down. Just is. Jamie climbed onto one of the kitchen chairs, watching his father with those careful eyes that sometimes made Nathan feel like his kid was older than he was. Did something bad happen? Nothing you need to worry about. You look sad. Nathan set the glass down. I'm not sad. I'm just tired. You're always tired. Yeah, well, Nathan rubbed his face. How about we order pizza tonight? Jamie's eyes went wide. Really? Really? Can we get extra cheese? Sure, son. They ordered pizza. Nathan let Jamie pick a movie, something animated with talking animals that Nathan couldn't follow because his mind kept drifting back to the courthouse, to Claire's face when the lawyer revealed the payment, to Marcus Whitmore's smile, to the feeling of being a pawn in someone else's game. After Jamie fell asleep, Nathan sat on the couch in the dark and finished the vodka. His phone was still off. He didn't want to talk to anyone. didn't want to hear Rebecca's explanations or Claire's apologies. He just wanted to sit in the quiet and figure out what he was going to do. Around midnight, someone knocked on the door. Nathan ignored it. They knocked again, harder this time. Nathan got up, looked through the peephole, and saw Rebecca Marsh standing in the hallway. She was still wearing her court clothes, but her hair was coming loose and she looked exhausted. Nathan opened the door but didn't invite her in. "How'd you find my address?" "I'm a lawyer. I find things." She looked past him into the apartment. "Can we talk?" "I already told you I'm done." "I know. I'm here anyway." Nathan wanted to close the door in her face. Instead, he stepped into the hallway and pulled the door shut behind him so they wouldn't wake Jamie. "Make it fast." Rebecca leaned against the wall. Claire didn't know about the payment. That's the truth. Doesn't matter. It does matter. Her foundation director made that decision independently. He saw your name in the case files, ran a background check, and decided to help without consulting anyone. Why would he do that? Because the foundation exists to help people in exactly your situation. Medical debt, single parents. He didn't know you were going to testify. The timing was just catastrophically bad luck. Nathan laughed bitterly. "You expect me to believe that?" "I expect you to hear me out." Rebecca's voice was sharp now. "Marcus Whitmore's team knew about that payment before we did. They've been monitoring the foundation's transactions for weeks, waiting for something they could use. They sat on it until the perfect moment to destroy your credibility. Well, it worked. Only if you don't come back." Nathan stared at her. "Are you serious? My testimony is worthless now. Everyone in that courtroom thinks I'm being paid to lie." "Not everyone. Judge Klein knows witness tampering when she sees it. She's not an idiot." "Then why did she dismiss me?" "She didn't dismiss you. She recessed to figure out how to handle it." Rebecca pushed off the wall. "Nathan, Claire is going to lose everything if you walk away. Her brother has spent 3 months building a case that she's unstable, paranoid, unfit to run the company. Your testimony was supposed to prove she's none of those things, that she's capable of compassion and sound judgment, even under extreme pressure. Find another witness." "There isn't another witness. You were the only person who helped her. Not my problem." Rebecca was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "You're right. It's not your problem. You didn't ask for any of this. You just tried to help someone, and now you're caught in the middle of something ugly and complicated and completely unfair. So why are you still here?" "Because I think you're better than this." Nathan felt anger flash hot in his chest. "Better than what? Better than protecting my kid? Better than walking away from people who use me without asking? Better than letting Marcus Whitmore win because you got your feelings hurt?" Nathan took a step toward her. "My feelings hurt? Are you kidding me? I just found out in front of a courtroom full of people that someone paid off my debt without telling me. I've been working myself to death for 2 years trying to pay down that hospital bill, and now everyone thinks I sold my testimony for it. You think that's about hurt feelings?" Rebecca didn't back down. "I think it's about pride. And I think you're so focused on being angry that you're not seeing what's actually happening here. Enlighten me." Marcus Whitmore is going to destroy his sister and take control of a company that employs 4,000 people. He's going to gut it for profit, offshore the jobs, and walk away with hundreds of millions while families lose their livelihoods. That's what happens if you quit. That's not on me. No, it's on him. But you could stop it." Nathan shook his head. "One guy testifying isn't going to stop anything." "One guy telling the truth might." Rebecca's voice softened. "Look, I get it. You feel used. You feel like you walked into something you didn't understand. But the truth is, you did understand. You saw someone who needed help and you helped them. That hasn't changed. The only thing that's changed is now you know who she is." Nathan looked away. "I need to think." "You have until 8 a.m. tomorrow. That's when Judge Klein reconvenes to decide whether to allow your testimony." Rebecca pulled a card from her pocket and held it out. This is the foundation director who authorized the payment. His name is Paul Hendricks. He wants to apologize personally." Nathan took the card but didn't look at it. "Anything else?" "Yep." "Yeah, Claire asked me to tell you she's sorry. She said if she could undo it, she would. She can't. No, but she meant it. Rebecca walked toward the stairs, then stopped and turned back. You know what the worst part of this job is? Watching good people get punished for doing the right thing. Happens all the time. And every time it does, the bad guys win a little more. She left. Nathan stood in the hallway for a long time, holding the business card, listening to the building settle around him. Then he went back inside, threw the card on the kitchen counter, and went to bed. He didn't sleep. At 6 in the morning, Nathan got up and made coffee. While it brewed, he stared at the business card. Paul Hendricks, Executive Director, Whitmore Family Foundation. A phone number, an email address. Nathan picked up his phone and turned it on. 17 missed calls, 8 voicemails, 23 text messages. He ignored all of them and dialed the number on the card. A man answered on the second ring. Paul Hendricks. This is Nathan Cole. There was a pause. Mr. Cole, thank you for calling. Rebecca said you wanted to apologize. I do. I owe you more than an apology, but it's a start. Hendricks sounded genuinely distressed. I authorized that payment without understanding the full context of Claire's legal situation. I saw your name in our case files, ran a standard background check, and saw the medical debt. The foundation exists specifically to help single parents in situations like yours. I thought I was doing the right thing. You should have asked first. You're absolutely right. I should have. But our foundation handles hundreds of cases a month, and most of them are straightforward. I didn't realize you were connected to the trial until Ms. Marsh called me yesterday afternoon. Nathan poured himself coffee with one hand. How did Marcus Whitmore find out? We're still investigating that. My best guess is someone inside the foundation leaked it to his team. Marcus has been trying to undermine Claire's charitable work for months. Why? Because it makes her look good, compassionate, stable. Everything his case claims she's not. Hendricks sighed. Mr. Cole, I know this doesn't fix anything, but I want you to know that payment wasn't contingent on your testimony. It was based solely on your need. If you'd never agreed to testify, you still would have received that assistance. Except now everyone thinks I'm a liar. Everyone thinks Marcus Whitmore is a manipulator. There's a difference. Nathan leaned against the counter. What happens if I don't go back? Honestly, Claire loses. The judge will view your absence as confirmation that you were only testifying for money. Marcus's lawyers will use it to strengthen their case that Claire manipulated you, and the company goes to him. What happens if I do go back? You tell the truth. You explain exactly what happened and why you helped Claire. And maybe, if we're lucky, the truth is enough. Nathan thought about that. The truth hasn't been enough for me in a long time. I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, me too. Nathan hung up. He stood in the kitchen, drinking coffee and watching the sky lighten outside the window. Jamie would be up soon. Nathan needed to get him ready for school, needed to go to work, needed to pretend like his life hadn't just been turned inside out by people who lived in a world he barely understood. His phone buzzed. A text from Rosie. I saw the news. You okay? Nathan texted back. Define okay. That bad? Worse. You coming in today? Nathan looked at the clock. 7 a.m. He was supposed to be at the courthouse at 8. He was supposed to meet with Rebecca and probably Claire and face Judge Klein and explain why he should be allowed to testify when everyone thought he'd been bought. He texted Rosie. Not today. I'll explain later. You need anything? No, thanks. Nathan put the phone down and went to wake Jamie. His son opened his eyes slowly, blinked at the ceiling, then looked at Nathan. Is it a school day? Yeah, buddy. I don't want to go. Me neither. But we both have to. Jamie sat up, rubbing his eyes. When I grow up, I'm never going to do things I don't want to do. Nathan smiled despite everything. Good luck with that. He got Jamie dressed, made him breakfast, and walked him to the bus stop. The other parents waiting there gave Nathan strange looks. One of them, a woman named Karen, who'd always been friendly before, actually stepped away from him. Nathan realized she must have seen the news. They all had. The bus came, Jamie climbed on, waving through the window. Nathan waved back and watched the bus drive away. Then he stood at the empty corner for a long time, trying to decide what kind of man he was going to be. At 7:45, Nathan called a cab he couldn't afford and gave the driver the courthouse address. The ride took 20 minutes through morning traffic. Nathan watched the city pass by and tried to figure out what he was going to say. He had no speech prepared, no clever arguments. He just had the truth, and he wasn't even sure the truth mattered anymore. The cab dropped him off at the courthouse steps. Nathan paid, tipped more than he should have, and climbed the stone stairs. Inside, Rebecca was waiting in the lobby. She looked surprised to see him. "You came. Don't make a big deal out of it." "Too late." She actually smiled. "Come on. Judge Klein wants to see us in chambers before we reconvene." They took the elevator up. The hallway outside the judge's chambers was empty except for one person sitting on a bench. Claire. She stood when she saw Nathan. She'd changed clothes since yesterday. Now she was wearing a simple gray dress and no jewelry. She looked smaller, somehow, less like the CEO from the photographs and more like the woman who'd stood in the alley. "Mr. Cole," she said quietly, "I didn't think you'd come back." "Yeah, well, I'm full of surprises." "I'm sorry for all of this. I never wanted to drag you into my mess." Nathan looked at her for a long moment. "Did you know about the payment?" "No, I swear to you I didn't know. But it was your foundation. A foundation my father started 20 years ago. I sit on the board, but I don't micromanage every decision. That's what directors are for." Claire's voice cracked slightly. "If I could take it back, I would. If I could pay you back just to clear your name, I would do it in a heartbeat." "You can't pay me back. That's the whole problem." "I know." Rebecca cleared her throat. "We should go in." Judge Klein's chambers were smaller than Nathan expected. The walls were lined with law books, and there was a desk covered in files and a coffee maker that looked older than Nathan. The judge sat behind the desk, reading glasses perched on her nose, reviewing documents. She looked up when they entered. "Miss Marsh, Ms. Whitmore, Mr. Cole, sit down." They sat. Judge Klein set the documents aside and folded her hands. "Mr. Cole, I wanted to be very clear about something. The payment made by the Whitmore Family Foundation creates an appearance of impropriety that could compromise this entire trial. Do you understand that?" "Yes, Your Honor. I've reviewed the Foundation's records and spoken with Mr. Hendricks. His story checks out. The payment was made as part of a standard assistance program, not as compensation for testimony. However, perception matters in a courtroom. If I allow you to testify, the jury will question your motives." Nathan nodded. "I understand. Do you still want to testify?" Nathan looked at Claire, then at Rebecca, then back at the judge. "Yes." Judge Klein studied him. "Why?" "Because I'm the only person who saw her when she had nothing. And what I saw was someone who was scared but not broken, tired but not crazy. Human." Nathan's voice was steady. "I didn't help her for money. I helped her because she was cold. That's the truth, and I'm willing to say it in front of anyone." Judge Klein was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "All right, I'm going to allow your testimony to continue. But I'm also going to instruct the jury to consider the foundation payment when evaluating your credibility. Understood?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Miss Marsh, you'll need to address this directly in your questioning. No dancing around it." Rebecca nodded. "Understood." "Good. We reconvene in 15 minutes." They filed out of the chambers. In the hallway, Claire stopped Nathan. "Thank you," she said. "I know that doesn't fix anything, but thank you." Nathan didn't know how to respond, so he just nodded. 15 minutes later, Nathan was back on the witness stand. The courtroom was even more packed than yesterday. Reporters filled the back rows, cameras positioned outside the doors, everyone waiting to see what would happen next. Judge Klein banged her gavel. "We're back on the record. Miss Marsh, you may continue." Rebecca stood. "Mr. Cole, we need to address what came to light yesterday. You learned during your testimony that the Whitmore Family Foundation paid off your hospital debt. Is that correct?" "Yes." "Did you know about this payment before yesterday?" "No." "Did anyone tell you it was going to happen?" "No." Did Ms. Whitmore ever mention money to you? Promise you anything in exchange for testimony? No, never. So when you agreed to testify, you believed you'd still be carrying that debt? Yes. Rebecca paused, letting that sink in. Mr. Cole, why did you agree to testify? Nathan looked at the jury, 12 people staring at him, trying to decide if he was telling the truth. Because she asked, and because what I saw in that alley doesn't match what everyone keeps saying about her. Can you explain that? People keep calling her unstable, paranoid, unfit. But the woman I saw every morning was present, aware. She didn't talk much, but when she did, she made sense. She was surviving something, not falling apart from it. Elliot Chen stood. Objection. The witness isn't qualified to make psychological assessments. Judge Klein looked at Nathan. Sustained. Mr. Cole, stick to what you observed, not your conclusions. Nathan nodded. She thanked me. She looked me in the eye. She was quiet, but she wasn't confused. She knew exactly where she was and what was happening. Rebecca continued. What did you think when you found out about the debt payment? I thought I'd been used. Do you still think that? Nathan hesitated. I think I got caught in the middle of something I didn't understand, but I don't think Claire Whitmore set me up. Why not? Because if she wanted to buy my testimony, she would have told me about the payment. She would have used it as leverage. Instead, I found out in court, just like everyone else. Rebecca sat down. No further questions. Elliot Chen stood immediately. He walked toward Nathan with the same careful confidence as yesterday. Mr. Cole, you've had 24 hours to think about this situation, to consult with Miss Whitmore's legal team, to coordinate your story. I didn't coordinate anything. No? You didn't meet with Ms. Marsh yesterday evening? She came to my apartment. I didn't ask her to. But you spoke with her. Briefly. And this morning? You arrived at the courthouse nearly an hour before the trial resumed. Who did you speak with during that time? Ms. Marsh. And Ms. Whitmore. In the judge's chambers. Chen smiled. So you had multiple opportunities to align your testimony with the defense's strategy. I'm telling the truth. That's the only strategy. Are you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're a desperate man who saw an opportunity and took it. Nathan felt his jaw tighten. I didn't take anything. You took $23,000. I didn't ask for it. But you're not giving it back, are you? Nathan stared at him. What? The debt has been paid. You're no longer obligated to repay it, so you could, theoretically, return that money to the foundation if you wanted to prove your testimony wasn't influenced by it. But you haven't done that. Why? Nathan's mind raced. He hadn't even thought about returning the money. Because I didn't know I could. You're a smart man, Mr. Cole. Surely you understand how money works. Objection, Rebecca called. Counsel is badgering the witness. Sustained. Move on, Mr. Chen. Chen pulled a paper from his file. Mr. Cole, you testified that you helped Miss Whitmore because she was cold. Is that correct? Yes. And you brought her coffee, food, warm clothing? Yes. For 2 weeks? About that, yes. Did you help anyone else during those 2 weeks? Nathan blinked. What? It's a simple question. Were there other homeless people in the area? Did you bring them coffee and food too? Nathan felt something cold settle in his stomach. No. No? So out of all the homeless people in Chicago, you only helped this one woman. She was right there, outside the cafe. There are homeless people outside businesses all over the city. Do you help all of them? I can't help everyone. But you helped her, specifically, consistently, every single morning. Chen leaned on the witness stand rail. Mr. Cole, isn't it possible you helped Ms. Whitmore not because she was cold, but because something about her seemed different, more valuable? No, that's not what happened. Are you sure? Because it seems convenient that the one homeless person you decided to help regularly just happened to be a billionaire. Nathan's hands clenched. I didn't know who she was. So you say. But you also didn't know about the debt payment, and yet here we are. Chen straightened. Mr. Cole, I think you saw an opportunity to befriend someone who could help you. I think you cultivated that relationship deliberately, and I think now you're protecting your investment. That's not true, isn't it? You're $23,000 richer and testifying on behalf of the woman whose foundation gave you that money. That's not kindness, Mr. Cole. That's a transaction. Nathan felt something snap inside him. You want to know why I helped her? Because I've been where she was. Not the same way, not the same reasons, but I know what it feels like to be invisible, to have people walk past you like you don't exist, to go to bed cold and wake up colder and wonder if anyone would even notice if you just stopped trying. The courtroom went quiet. Nathan kept going, his voice rough. I'm a single father working minimum wage, drowning in debt, one bad week away from losing everything. I don't have the luxury of being picky about who I help. But when I saw her standing in that alley, freezing, I saw someone who needed help, and I had the ability to give it. That's all that happened. I didn't know she was rich. I didn't know she'd pay off my debt. I just knew she was cold, and I could do something about it. Chen's expression didn't change. Very touching, but it doesn't change the facts. The facts are I helped her because it was the right thing to do. If you can't understand that, that's your problem, not mine. Objection, Chen said. Non-responsive. Judge Klein looked at Nathan. Mr. Cole, just answer the questions. I'm answering. He just doesn't like what I'm saying. Mr. Cole, I'm done. Nathan looked at the judge. I came here to tell the truth. I've done that. If people want to think I'm lying, fine. But I know what happened, and so does she. He pointed at Claire. I helped her because she was cold. That's the truth. That's the only truth. Judge Klein's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Mr. Chen, do you have any further questions? Chen looked at Nathan for a long moment. Then he said, No, Your Honor. I think Mr. Cole has made his position quite clear. Ms. Marsh? Redirect? Rebecca shook her head. No, Your Honor. The witness has said everything that needs to be said. Judge Klein nodded. Mr. Cole, you're dismissed. Thank you for your testimony. Nathan stood on shaking legs and walked out of the courtroom. He made it to the hallway before his knees gave out and he had to sit on a bench. He put his head in his hands and tried to breathe. He'd done it. He told the truth. Whether anyone believed him was out of his control now. After a few minutes, the courtroom doors opened and people started filing out. Nathan kept his head down, not wanting to make eye contact with anyone. Footsteps approached and stopped in front of him. Mr. Cole? Nathan looked up. It was one of the jurors, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes. She wasn't supposed to be talking to him. That was probably against about 15 different rules. I just wanted to say, she said quietly, I believed you. Before Nathan could respond, she walked away. Nathan sat there, staring at nothing, feeling something tight in his chest start to loosen. The trial continued for 2 more days. Nathan didn't attend. He went back to work, took care of Jamie, and tried not to think about what was happening downtown. Rosie didn't ask questions, but she did make sure Nathan ate lunch every day and didn't work any double shifts. On the 3rd day, Rebecca called. It's over, she said. Nathan's heart stopped. And? Judge Klein ruled in Claire's favor. Marcus's case fell apart after your testimony. The jury saw through his manipulation, and several of his witnesses recanted their statements once they realized they were on the losing side. Nathan sat down heavily. So she won. She won. Marcus is facing criminal charges for fraud and witness intimidation. The company's back under Claire's control. It's over. Nathan didn't know what to say. Nathan didn't. There's something else, Rebecca continued. Claire wants to see you, to thank you properly. She doesn't need to do that. She insists, tomorrow 2 p.m., same building as before. Will you come? Nathan thought about it. Yeah. Okay. The next day, Nathan took the train downtown again. This time, walking into the glass tower didn't feel quite as intimidating. The security guard recognized him and waved him through without checking his ID. The elevator took him to the 43rd floor. Claire was waiting in the same conference room, but this time she was alone. No lawyers, no files. Just her, standing by the window, looking out at the city. She turned when Nathan walked in. "Thank you for coming." "Rebecca said you insisted." "I did." Claire gestured to a chair. "Please." Nathan sat. Claire sat across from him. "I want to apologize," she said, "for everything, for dragging you into this, for the debt payment, for putting you in an impossible position. You didn't drag me anywhere. I chose to help. You chose to help a homeless woman. You didn't choose to testify in a billion-dollar legal battle." "No, but I did it anyway." Claire smiled slightly. "You did, and because of that, I still have my company, my father's legacy, my life." Nathan shifted uncomfortably. "You would have figured something out." "Maybe, but I doubt it would have worked without you." She paused. "I wanted to offer you something, not as payment, not as compensation, but as thanks." "I don't want anything." "I know. That's what makes you different." Claire pulled a folder from beside her chair and slid it across the table. "I'm launching a new initiative through the foundation, a partnership with local businesses to provide employment, childcare support, and financial assistance to single parents. I want your cafe to be one of our partner locations. Bolsi, but this squares." Nathan opened the folder. Inside were documents outlining a program that would subsidize wages for single-parent employees, provide emergency funds for unexpected expenses, and connect families with resources they needed. "Why Rosie's Cafe?" "Because it's where you work. Because it's a place that clearly believes in giving people chances. And because I want to build something good out of all of this." Nathan read through the documents. The program was legitimate, professional, not charity, just support. "What if I say no?" "Then I'll find another cafe. But I hope you'll say yes." Nathan looked at her. "This isn't about me, is it?" "No, it's about people like you, people who are working themselves to death and barely surviving, people who deserve better." Claire's voice was steady. "You helped me when I had nothing. This is me trying to help people who are where you were." Nathan closed the folder. "I need to talk to Rosie." "Of course." He stood. Claire stood too. "For what it's worth," Nathan said, "I'm glad you got your company back." "For what it's worth," Claire replied, "I'm glad you brought me coffee." Nathan almost smiled. "Yeah, me too." He left the building, took the train home, and walked into the cafe at 4:30 the next morning like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Rosie looked at him when he walked in. "You look different." "Do I?" "Less tired." Nathan pulled on his apron. "Maybe I am." "You want to tell me what happened?" "Claire Whitmore won her case. Her brother's done. She's got her company back." Rosie nodded slowly. "Good. That woman deserves to win something. She wants to partner with us. Some kind of support program for single parents. I've got the paperwork. Let me see it. Basi. Nathan pulled the folder from his bag and handed it over. Rosie read through it carefully, her expression unreadable. When she finished, she closed the folder and looked at Nathan. "This is real?" "Yeah. And you trust her?" Nathan thought about that. "I think she's trying to do something good because someone was good to her. So yeah, I trust her." Rosie set the folder on the counter. "Then let's do it." Nathan felt something loosen in his chest. "Yeah?" "Yeah." Rosie started pulling pastries from the oven. "World needs more good things. Might as well start here." Nathan smiled. Actually smiled. For the first time in what felt like years. Outside, the sun was starting to rise over Chicago. The winter wasn't over yet. It would keep snowing, keep freezing, keep testing everyone who lived in this brutal city. But inside the cafe, it was warm. And for once, Nathan felt like maybe things were going to be okay. Not perfect, not easy, but okay. And that was enough. 2 weeks after the trial ended, the partnership paperwork came through. Nathan sat at Rosie's kitchen table in the back of the cafe, reading through contracts that were written in language he only half understood. Rosie sat across from him, glasses perched on her nose, making notes on a legal pad. "This clause here," she said, tapping the page with her pen, "says they'll subsidize wages for any employee who qualifies as a single parent or primary caregiver. That's you." I know. Yeah, tomorrow. Which means you'd be making $4 more an hour, automatically. Nathan did the math in his head. $4 an hour, 40 hours a week. That was an extra $640 a month, enough to finally start saving instead of just surviving. What's the catch? Nathan asked. No catch. They pay the difference directly to the cafe. We pay you. It's clean. Nathan set the contract down. This feels too good to be true, Isha. Maybe. Or maybe someone with money finally decided to do something useful with it. Rosie flipped to another page. They're also offering emergency grants, medical expenses, car repairs, childcare. Up to $5,000 per year per employee, no payback required. $5,000. That's what it says. Nathan rubbed his face. 3 months ago, he'd been drowning. Now someone was throwing him a life raft, and he wasn't sure if he should grab it or question why it floated. Rosie was watching him. You don't trust it. I don't trust anything that comes easy. Who said it was easy? You testified in court. You put yourself out there. You earned this. I brought someone coffee, Rosie, that's not earning $600 extra a month. You did the right thing when it would have been easier to walk away. In my book, that's worth something. She pushed the contract toward him. Sign it. Let someone help you for once. Nathan picked up the pen. His hand hovered over the signature line for a long moment. Then he signed. Rosie signed as the business owner, dated both copies, and slid them into an envelope. I'll mail these tomorrow. Program starts next pay period. Just like that? Just like that. Nathan stood, feeling like the floor wasn't quite solid under him. I need to get back to work. You've been working since 4:30 this morning. Take a break. I don't know how. Yes. Rosie smiled sadly. Then it's a good thing you're about to have a little breathing room to figure it out. That night, Nathan picked Jamie up from after-school care and took him to the grocery store. Not the discount place where they usually shopped, counting every item and putting things back when the total got too high. The regular store, the one with the bright lights and the wide aisles, and the produce that didn't look like it was about to give up. Jamie walked beside him, confused. Why are we here? Because we can be. But it's expensive. Nathan grabbed a cart. Not today. They walked the aisles slowly. Nathan let Jamie pick out the cereal he actually wanted instead of the generic brand, fresh fruit instead of canned, real orange juice instead of the powder mix. When they got to the meat section, Nathan bought steaks, actual steaks, the kind he used to grill back when he was married and had a backyard and thought life was going to turn out different than it did. At the register, the total came to $83. Nathan paid without flinching. The cashier bagged everything, and Nathan carried it all out to the bus stop where they waited in the cold. Jamie looked up at him. Dad, are we rich now? Nathan laughed. No, buddy, we're not rich. Then why'd you buy so much food? Because we can. And because I wanted you to have the good cereal. Well, Jamie thought about that. I like the good cereal. I know you do. They rode the bus home, carried the bags upstairs, and put everything away. Nathan cooked the steaks that night, pan-fried because they didn't have a grill. And they came out uneven and a little tough, but Jamie ate every bite like it was the best thing he'd ever tasted. After dinner, after Jamie was asleep, Nathan sat at the kitchen table with his laptop and looked at his bank account. For the first time in 2 years, the balance was positive. Not by much, but positive. He closed the laptop and just sat there in the quiet, feeling something he hadn't felt in so long he'd almost forgotten what it was called. Hope. The partnership officially launched 3 weeks later. The cafe got a small sign in the window. Proud partner, Whitmore Family Foundation. A reporter came by to take pictures and ask questions. Nathan stayed in the kitchen and let Rosie handle it. He didn't want to be part of the story. He just wanted to work. But the story found him anyway. A woman walked into the cafe one morning, right in the middle of the breakfast rush. She was in her 40s, dressed in work clothes, carrying a backpack that looked heavy. She walked straight up to the counter where Nathan was working the register. Are you Nathan Cole? Nathan felt his stomach tighten. Yeah. Why? I saw you on the news. The whole thing with Claire Whitmore. The woman's voice shook slightly. I'm a single mom, 3 kids, working 2 jobs. I saw that you got help through the foundation, and I just wanted to know if that's real, if people like us can actually get help. Nathan set down the coffee pot he was holding. Yeah, it's real. How do I apply? You talk to your employer, ask if they're willing to partner with the foundation. If they are, the foundation handles the rest. What if my employer says no? Nathan didn't have an answer for that. I don't know, but I can give you the foundation's number. They might be able to help you find resources. The woman's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. I just needed to know it was real, that I wasn't imagining it. You're not imagining it. She left. Nathan stood at the register, shaken, until Rosie nudged him and told him to get back to work. It happened 3 more times that week. People walking in, asking about the program, wanting to know if it was legitimate or just another promise that would disappear. Each time, Nathan gave them the foundation's contact information and wished he could do more. On Friday, Claire Whitmore walked into the cafe. Nathan was wiping down tables when he looked up and saw her standing in the doorway. She was dressed casually this time, jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked more like the woman from the alley than the CEO from the courtroom. Rosie spotted her first. Can I help you? I'm here to see Nathan. Nathan walked over, dish towel still in his hand. What are you doing here? I wanted to see the cafe, see how the partnership's working. Claire looked around. This place is exactly what I imagined. What did you imagine? Somewhere real. Somewhere people actually care about each other. She turned back to him. Can we talk? Nathan glanced at Rosie. She waved him off. Go, I'll cover. They sat at a corner table away from the other customers. Claire ordered coffee, black. Nathan sat across from her, uncomfortable in his own workplace. You didn't have to come here, Nathan said. I wanted to. I've been getting reports about the program, but reports don't tell you what it's actually like. I wanted to see it for myself. It's a cafe. People come in, order coffee, leave. Not much to see. Icky. That's not what I mean. Claire wrapped her hands around the coffee mug. I've had 17 businesses sign up for the partnership in the last 3 weeks. 17. Most of them because their employees saw you on the news and asked about it. Nathan shifted in his seat. I didn't do anything. You testified. You put your face out there. People saw someone like them getting help, and they realized maybe they could get help too. Claire took a sip of coffee. You're changing things, Nathan, whether you want to or not. I don't want to. I know, but it's happening anyway. She set the mug down. I came here to ask you something. The foundation wants to expand the program nationally. We're looking for someone to be the public face of it, someone who understands what it's like to need help, someone people will trust. Nathan stared at her. You want me to be your spokesperson? Not a spokesperson, more like an advisor. Someone who can talk to potential partner businesses, explain how the program works, show them why it matters. I'm not qualified for that. You're the most qualified person I know. You've lived it. I work in a cafe, Claire. I barely finished community college. I don't know how to talk to business owners. You talk to people every day. You make them feel heard. That's the skill we need. So, Nathan shook his head. I have a kid. I can't travel around the country giving speeches. You wouldn't have to. Most of it could be done remotely, video calls, the occasional local meeting, and you'd be paid enough that you could cut back your hours here if you wanted. I like working here. I'm not asking you to quit. I'm asking you to help more people like the woman who came in here Tuesday, the one who was crying because she didn't know if this was real. Nathan went quiet. He'd been thinking about that woman all week, about the desperation in her voice, the hope in her eyes. I need time to think about it, Nathan said. Take all the time you need. But Nathan, you have something most people in my position don't have. You have credibility. When you say this program matters, people believe you. Because I'm poor. Because you're honest. Claire stood. Think about it. No pressure. Whatever you decide is fine. She left money for the coffee on the table and walked out. Nathan sat there for a long time, staring at the empty mug. That night, Nathan talked to Jamie about it. His son was sitting on the floor, building something complicated with Legos, his tongue sticking out in concentration the way it always did when he was focused. Hey, buddy, can I ask you something? Jamie didn't look up. Is it about homework? Because I did it already. It's not about homework. It's about work. My work. Yeah. Okay. Someone offered me a different job. Kind of. It would be helping people who are having a hard time, like we were. But it would mean I'd be doing more meetings and talking to strangers. I'm not sure if I should do it. Jamie set down the Lego piece he was holding and looked at Nathan. Would it make you happy? I don't know. Maybe. Would it help people? Yeah, it would. Then you should do it. Nathan smiled. It's not that simple. Why not? You're always helping people. You helped me. You helped that lady. Now someone wants to pay you to help more people. Sounds simple. Out of the mouths of kids. What if I'm bad at it? Jamie shrugged. Then you'll get better. That's what you always tell me when I mess up my math. Nathan reached over and ruffled his son's hair. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just don't listen. Fair point. The next morning, Nathan called the number Claire had given him. A woman answered, professional and efficient. Whitmore Family Foundation, this is Angela. This is Nathan Cole. Claire asked me to call. Oh, Mr. Cole. Yes, let me transfer you. There was a click, then Claire's voice. Nathan, have you thought about it? Yeah, I'll do it, but I need some rules. Name them. I don't quit my job at the cafe. I don't do anything that takes me away from Jamie for more than a day. And I don't lie to people. If something's not working, I say so. Deal. When can you start? I already work 6 days a week. Give me Sunday afternoons. Sunday afternoons work. I'll have Angela send you the details. Nathan hung up, feeling like he'd just agreed to something that was either going to change his life or completely overwhelm him. Maybe both. The first meeting was 2 weeks later. A video call with a group of restaurant owners in Detroit who were considering joining the partnership. Nathan sat at his kitchen table with his laptop, wearing the same suit he'd worn to court, feeling completely out of his depth. Claire was on the call too, along with Paul Hendricks and 2 other foundation staff. They handled the business side, explaining tax benefits and implementation logistics. Then Claire turned it over to Nathan. I'd like you to hear from Nathan Cole. He works at one of our partner locations in Chicago. Nathan, can you talk about what the program has meant for you? Nathan looked at the screen, at the grid of faces staring back at him. Business owners, successful people, people who probably thought he had nothing useful to say. I'm a single dad, Nathan started. I've been working minimum wage for 2 years, trying to pay off medical debt and keep my kid fed. Before this program, I was applying for second jobs every week and getting rejected because I couldn't work the hours they needed. I was behind on rent, behind on everything. He paused, trying to find the right words. This program didn't fix everything. I'm not suddenly rich, but it gave me breathing room. An extra few $100s a month means I can buy my kid the good cereal instead of the cheap stuff. It means I'm not choosing between groceries and heat. It means I can start thinking about the future instead of just surviving today. One of the restaurant owners spoke up. A man with gray hair and tired eyes. How do we know employees won't abuse it? Take the money and stop working as hard. Nathan met his eyes through the screen. Because people who actually need help don't abuse it. They're too scared of losing it. The only people who worry about abuse are people who've never needed help themselves. There was a long silence. Then the man said, Fair point. They talked for another 30 minutes. By the end, 3 of the 5 restaurants agreed to join the program. Claire thanked everyone and ended the call. A minute later, she called Nathan directly. That was perfect. I kind of insulted that guy. You told him the truth. That's what we need. She paused. How do you feel? Exhausted. Welcome to advocacy work. Claire laughed. Same time next week? Yeah, same time. Over the next 2 months, Nathan did 11 more calls. He talked to cafe owners in Minneapolis, grocery store managers in Phoenix, manufacturing plant supervisors in Pittsburgh. Some of them signed up. Some of them didn't. But Nathan learned that when he talked about Jamie, about the nights he couldn't sleep because he was adding up bills in his head, about the shame of not being able to afford his son's field trip, people listened. He wasn't polished. He wasn't smooth. But he was real, and apparently that mattered. The cafe started getting busier too. People heard about the partnership and made a point to come in, wanting to support a business that supported its workers. Rosie had to hire another part-timer. For the first time in years, the cafe was actually profitable. One afternoon in early March, Nathan was working the counter when a man in an expensive suit walked in. He ordered coffee, then stood at the counter instead of sitting down. "You're Nathan Cole." Nathan handed him the coffee. "That's me. I'm Richard Delacourt. I own a chain of hotels in the Midwest. I've been watching what you're doing with the Whitmore Foundation." "Okay. I want to hire you." Nathan blinked. "What?" "Full-time. Director of Employee Relations. You'd help us build a program similar to the Foundation's partnership, but internal to our company. Six-figure salary. Benefits. Travel required, but minimal." Nathan stared at him. "You're offering me a six-figure job because I talked on some Zoom calls?" "I'm offering you a six-figure job because you understand what most HR people don't. You know what it's like to be on the other side. That perspective is valuable." "I don't have a degree. Neither did my father, and he built this company from nothing. What you have is experience and credibility. That's worth more." Nathan felt like the ground was tilting. "I need to think about it." Felt like, "Of course. Here's my card. Call me when you're ready." The man left. Nathan stood behind the counter holding the business card, trying to process what had just happened. A six-figure salary. Him. The guy who'd been applying for warehouse jobs 3 months ago. Rosie appeared at his elbow. "What was that about?" "He offered me a job." "Doing what?" "I don't really know. Something with employee relations." "You going to take it?" Nathan looked at her. "Would you be mad if I did?" Rosie smiled. "Nathan, I hired you because you needed work and you were honest. You've been the best employee I've ever had. But if someone's offering you a chance to do more, to help more people, I'm not going to be mad. I'm going to be proud." Well, "I don't know if I can do it." "You didn't know if you could testify either. You did it anyway." Nathan looked down at the card in his hand. "This is crazy. Crazy's been working pretty well for you lately." That night, Nathan lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had changed in 3 months. From drowning to breathing. From invisible to noticed. From hopeless to something that felt dangerously close to hope. His phone buzzed, a text from Claire. "Heard about Delacourt's offer. Whatever you decide, I'm grateful for everything you've done. You changed more lives than you know." Nathan stared at the message for a long time. Then he texted back. "I helped one person. You're the one who built the program." 3 dots appeared. "You helped one person when it mattered most. Everything else came from that." Nathan set his phone down and closed his eyes. In the next room, Jamie was sleeping peacefully, safe and warm and fed. The bills were paid. The rent was current. The future was uncertain, but for once, it didn't feel terrifying. 3 months ago, Nathan had been standing in an alley, handing coffee to a stranger because it was the right thing to do. Now that stranger was trying to hand him back a future. The world was strange and complicated and unfair in 1,000 different ways. But sometimes, once in a while, it surprised you. Sometimes kindness echoed back louder than you expected. Sometimes it changed everything. Nathan didn't know yet what he'd tell Richard Delacourt. Didn't know if he'd take the job or stay at the cafe or find some third option he hadn't considered. But he knew one thing for certain. He'd helped Claire because she was cold. She'd helped him because he'd been kind. And somewhere in that exchange, something bigger had been born. Something that was spreading across the city, across the country, touching people Nathan would never meet. That was worth something. Maybe it was worth everything. In the morning, Nathan would make his decision. But tonight, he just let himself rest. For the first time in years, he slept through the night without waking up in a panic about money or Jamie or tomorrow. He just slept. And outside, spring was finally starting to push back against winter's grip. The snow was melting. The days were getting longer. And in a small cafe on the south side of Chicago, a quiet revolution was beginning, 1 cup of coffee at a time. Nathan called Richard Delacourt on a Tuesday morning before his shift started. The hotel executive answered on the first ring, and Nathan could hear the smile in his voice when he realized who was calling. "Mr. Cole, I was hoping to hear from you." "I've been thinking about your offer," Nathan said, "and I appreciate it. I really do, but I can't take it." There was a pause. "May I ask why?" "Because I don't want to work in an office. I don't want to wear a suit every day and forget what it feels like to make coffee at 4 in the morning. The work I'm doing now matters, and I'm not ready to give that up for a bigger paycheck. Delacourt was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "That's exactly the answer I was hoping for." Nathan frowned. "What?" "Mr. Cole, I've interviewed hundreds of people over the years. Most of them would have jumped at the salary without thinking twice. You're the first person who turned it down because the work mattered more than the money. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. I'm not sure what you want me to say to that." "Nothing. Just keep doing what you're doing. And if you ever change your mind, the offer stands." "What?" They hung up. Nathan stood in his kitchen, holding his phone, feeling like he'd just passed some kind of test he hadn't known he was taking. Jamie wandered in, still in his pajamas, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Who were you talking to?" "Someone who wanted to give me a different job." "Are you taking it?" "Nope." "Good. I like it when you work at the cafe. You always smell like cinnamon rolls when you come home." Nathan laughed and pulled his son into a hug. "Yeah, me too." Spring came slowly to Chicago that year, fighting for every degree of warmth. But by mid-April, the snow was finally gone, replaced by brown grass struggling to turn green and trees that were starting to bud. The cafe put tables outside on the sidewalk, and people actually sat in them without shivering. The partnership program kept growing. By May, 43 businesses had signed on across 6 states. Nathan did fewer calls now, mostly just check-ins with businesses that were already part of the program. But he started writing instead. Blog posts for the foundation's website, sharing stories about employees who'd been helped, explaining why the program mattered in language regular people could understand. He wasn't a great writer. His sentences were clunky and his grammar was questionable. But people read what he wrote because it felt true, because he didn't hide behind corporate language or try to make poverty sound noble. He just told the truth about what it was like to be broke and scared and trying to hold your family together with duct tape and willpower. One afternoon in late May, Claire showed up at the cafe again. This time she brought Paul Hendricks with her. They sat at the same corner table, and Nathan joined them during his break. "We have a problem," Claire said without preamble. Nathan's stomach tightened. "What kind of problem?" "A good problem. The program's growing faster than we can manage it. We need to hire staff, build infrastructure, and we need someone to lead it who actually understands what we're trying to do." "Yeah. You want me to run the program?" "Yes." Nathan shook his head. "I already told Delacourt I'm not taking an office job." "This wouldn't be an office job." "Not entirely. You'd still do the calls, the writing, the outreach. But you'd also help us make decisions about which businesses to partner with, how to structure the grants, what policies to implement." Paul Hendricks leaned forward. "We're offering a position with flexibility. You'd work from home mostly. Set your own hours. You could keep working here if you wanted, though I doubt you'd have time." "What's the salary?" $65,000 to start, with benefits, health insurance, retirement matching, paid time off. Nathan looked at Claire. "Why me?" "Because you built this, Nathan. Not the legal structure or the funding, but the heart of it. The reason people trust it. That came from you. I gave someone coffee. You did the right thing when no one was watching, and then you kept doing it. That's leadership." Claire's expression was serious. "I know you don't see yourself this way, but you're the person we need." Nathan thought about Jamie, about the bills that were finally under control, about the life they'd been building piece by piece since the hospital debt was paid. "I need to talk to my kid first." "Of course." That night, Nathan sat Jamie down at the kitchen table and tried to explain what was happening. His son listened carefully, the way he always did when something was important. "So you'd still help people," Jamie said. "Just different people?" "More people. But yeah, would you have to travel?" "Sometimes, not a lot." "Would we have to move?" "No, we'd stay right here." Jamie thought about it. "Would you be happy?" Nathan realized that was the question he'd been avoiding. Would he be happy? Or would he spend the whole time feeling like an imposter, waiting for someone to realize he wasn't qualified? "I don't know," Nathan admitted. "But I think I'd like to try." "Then you should do it." "You keep saying that." "Because you keep asking questions you already know the answer to." Nathan smiled. When did you get so smart? I told you, I've always been smart. Nathan accepted the position the next day. He gave Rosie 2 weeks' notice, though she told him he didn't have to. On his last day at the cafe, she threw him a small party. A cake from the grocery store, cheap champagne, and all the regulars who'd been coming to the place for years. One of them, an older man named Frank, who ordered black coffee and read the newspaper every morning, raised his plastic cup in a toast. To Nathan, who proved you can work your ass off and still be a decent human being, don't let those foundation people change that. Everyone drank to it. Rosie pulled Nathan aside while people were eating cake. You're going to do great things. I'm just trying not to screw up. That's the secret. Everyone's just trying not to screw up. The difference is you actually care about the people you're helping. She squeezed his arm. Don't forget where you came from. I couldn't if I tried. Nathan started the new job on a Monday in June. It was strange working from home, setting up a desk in the corner of his bedroom, wearing sweatpants to Zoom meetings. But the work itself was satisfying in a way the cafe never had been. He was making decisions that affected thousands of people, reviewing applications from businesses that wanted to join the program, designing policies that would actually help, instead of just sounding good on paper. He hired 3 people in his first month. All of them were former service workers who'd experienced poverty firsthand. One was a single mother from Milwaukee. Another was a guy who'd been homeless for 6 months before getting back on his feet. The third was a woman who'd worked 3 jobs simultaneously just to keep her family housed. They built something real together. Not perfect, not smooth, but real. By August, the program had expanded to 12 states and was helping over 2,000 employees. The foundation launched a winter preparedness initiative in partnership with the program, providing cold weather gear and emergency heating assistance to families in need. Nathan ran point on it, coordinating with partner businesses and local organizations. One afternoon, he was on a call with a restaurant owner in Milwaukee when the woman mentioned something that made Nathan pause. We've had people coming in off the street, she said. Not customers, just people who are cold or hungry, and my staff started leaving food out for them. Nothing official, just sandwiches and coffee, like what you used to do. Nathan felt something shift in his chest. They're doing it on their own? Yeah, they said if the program's about helping people, they should help people. So they do. After the call ended, Nathan sat at his desk for a long time, thinking about that. About how a small thing he'd done in an alley had somehow rippled out into something bigger. Not because he'd planned it or managed it or controlled it, just because people saw it and decided to do the same. That evening, he took Jamie to the park. They threw a football back and forth while the sun set, painting the sky orange and pink. Jamie's arm was getting stronger. His throws actually spiraled now instead of wobbling through the air. Dad, can I ask you something? Always. Why did you help that lady, the one in the alley? Nathan caught the football and held it. Because she needed help. But lots of people need help. Why her? Nathan thought about how to answer that. Because she was right there, right in front of me, and I had the ability to do something about it. That felt like enough of a reason. Jamie nodded slowly. Do you think she would have helped you if it was the other way around? I don't know. Maybe not. But that's not why you help people. You don't do it because you expect them to return the favor. You do it because you can. Even if they're rich? Nathan smiled. Even if they're rich, They threw the football back and forth until it got too dark to see. On the walk home, Jamie slipped his hand into Nathan's, something he didn't do as much anymore now that he was getting older. I'm glad you helped her, Jamie said. Yeah, me too. In September, Marcus Whitmore was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison for fraud and witness tampering. Nathan didn't attend the sentencing, but Claire called him afterward. It's over, she said. Really over. How do you feel? Relieved? Sad? He's still my brother, even after everything. She paused. But mostly I just feel like I can finally move forward. What's next for you? I'm restructuring the company, shifting more resources towards sustainability and worker protections, making sure what my father built actually stands for something. Another pause. And I'm expanding the foundation, doubling the budget. We're going to help 10 times as many people next year. That's ambitious. I learned from the best. Claire laughed softly. You taught me that big changes start with small actions. I'm just trying to take small actions on a bigger scale. Nathan didn't know what to say to that. Thank you, Nathan, for everything. I know I've said it before, but I need you to know I mean it. You saved my life, not just in the alley, in the courtroom, and every day since then. You saved mine too. You just did it differently. After they hung up, Nathan sat at his desk and looked at the work he'd been doing. Spreadsheets full of names and numbers, applications from people who needed help, success stories from families whose lives had changed because someone decided to invest in them. It was overwhelming, but it was also meaningful in a way nothing else had ever been. That night, Nathan couldn't sleep. He got up around 2 in the morning and went to the kitchen to make tea. While he waited for the water to boil, he stood at the window looking out at the sleeping city. He thought about the last year, about how much had changed, about how one moment of basic human decency had somehow spiraled into this complicated, beautiful, imperfect thing that was touching thousands of lives. He thought about the woman who'd come into the cafe crying because she didn't know if help was real, about the restaurant staff in Milwaukee leaving food for strangers, about all the small kindnesses happening in the spaces between the official program, things he'd never know about, but that existed because someone had seen his story and decided to do the same. The water boiled. Nathan made his tea and sat at the kitchen table in the dark, and for the first time in his life, he felt like he understood something important about the world. Kindness wasn't transactional. It wasn't about keeping score or expecting rewards. It was about seeing someone in front of you who needed help and deciding that their need mattered more than your convenience. Most people never got the chance to see where their kindness led. They did something small, something that felt insignificant, and then moved on with their lives never knowing the impact they'd had. Nathan had been given the rare gift of watching it unfold, of seeing how coffee in an alley could become a foundation that helped thousands, of understanding that the smallest actions could echo in ways you'd never predict. But here's what he'd learned. The echo didn't matter as much as the original act. Whether Claire had been a billionaire or actually homeless, whether the foundation existed or not, the kindness itself had still been worth doing. Because in that moment, in that alley, a person had been cold and Nathan had made them less cold. That was enough. It had always been enough. Everything else was just bonus. The night of the first snowfall in November, Nathan couldn't sleep again. This time, it wasn't anxiety keeping him awake. It was anticipation. He got dressed quietly, pulled on his winter jacket, and slipped out of the apartment. The streets were empty at 4 in the morning, just like they'd been a year ago. Snow fell softly, catching in the streetlights, covering the city in white. Nathan walked the familiar path to the cafe. It looked different now with someone else managing it, but the bones were the same. The same brick walls. The same back alley. Nathan stood in that alley, in the spot where Claire used to wait, and remembered what it had felt like to bring her coffee that first morning. The uncertainty. The awkwardness. The simple human impulse to help. He heard footsteps and turned. A man was standing near the dumpster, shivering in a coat that was too thin for the weather. He looked at Nathan warily. Nathan smiled. "Morning. You waiting for someone?" The man shook his head. "Just trying to stay out of the wind." "You hungry?" Suspicion crossed the man's face. "Why?" "Because I'm about to go get coffee and something to eat. Figured you might want some too." The man stared at him for a long moment. Then he said, "Yeah, okay." Nathan walked to the cafe's back door. It was locked, but he still had his key. Old habits. He let himself in, made 2 large coffees, grabbed pastries from the case, and brought them back out. The man was still there. Nathan handed him the coffee and food. "You don't have to stand out here," Nathan said. "There's a shelter 6 blocks west. They'll have space this early." "I know where it is." "Okay." Nathan turned to leave. "Hey." Nathan looked back. "Why'd you do that?" Nathan thought about all the complicated answers he could give, about programs and foundations and changing the world. But in the end, he just said the truth. "Because you're cold." He left the man there and walked home through the falling snow. By the time he got back to his apartment, the sun was starting to rise. Jamie was awake, watching cartoons on the couch. "Where'd you go?" "Just for a walk." "In the snow?" "In the snow." Jamie looked at him like he was crazy, which was fair. Nathan made breakfast, got his son ready for school, and sat down at his desk to start work. The foundation was launching a major campaign in December. They'd be partnering with 50 new businesses across 15 states. Nathan had been working on it for months, coordinating with local organizations, training new staff, making sure the infrastructure was solid enough to handle the growth. It was exhausting. It was messy. It was full of complications and setbacks and moments where Nathan wasn't sure they were doing it right. But it was working. Slowly, imperfectly, but working. That's the thing about changing the world. It doesn't happen in dramatic moments or sweeping gestures. It happens in small decisions, repeated over and over, by regular people who decide that someone else's struggle matters more than their own comfort. Nathan had learned that the hard way. He'd learned it by being broke and desperate and invisible. By standing in an alley wondering if anyone would notice if he just gave up. By accepting help even when it came in ways he didn't expect or fully understand. And now he was on the other side, trying to extend that same help to others. Not because he was special or selfless or morally superior, just because he remembered what it felt like to be cold. And he didn't want anyone else to feel that way if he could prevent it. 6 months later, on a warm spring afternoon, Nathan stood at the front of a hotel conference room in downtown Chicago. 300 people filled the seats. Business owners, nonprofit directors, foundation staff, and employees from partner programs all across the country. Claire sat in the front row, smiling at him encouragingly. Paul Hendricks was beside her, along with the rest of the foundation board. Jamie was there too, sitting next to Mrs. Grabowski, looking proud and slightly embarrassed the way kids do when their parents are the center of attention. Nathan cleared his throat and looked out at the crowd. A year ago, he would have been terrified. Now he just felt ready. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you some inspiring story about how one person can change the world, he started. Because honestly, I don't think that's true. One person can't change the world. But one person can change one life. And if enough people do that, if enough of us decide that the person in front of us matters, then maybe we change things together. He paused, gathering his thoughts. A year and a half ago, I was barely surviving, working minimum wage, drowning in debt, trying to raise my son on nothing. I felt invisible, like the city was full of people who looked right through me. And then one morning, I saw someone else who was invisible. Someone standing in an alley, freezing, with nowhere to go. And I did the smallest thing. I brought her coffee. Nathan looked at Claire. She was crying silently, not bothering to hide it. I didn't do it because I thought it would change anything. I did it because she was cold and I could help. That's it. But that small thing became this big thing. This program that's helping thousands of people. And I keep asking myself why. Why did it matter? Why did it grow? He looked back at the crowd. I think it's because people are desperate to believe that kindness still exists, that we still see each other, that someone out there gives a damn whether we're cold or hungry or struggling. When they saw my story, they didn't just see me helping Claire. They saw proof that we're not as alone as we feel, that someone might help them too, if they needed it. Nathan's voice caught slightly. He cleared his throat again. The program we've built isn't perfect. It's not going to solve poverty or fix all the broken systems that keep people trapped. But it's doing something real. It's telling people they matter, that their struggles are seen, that they're not invisible. He paused, looking out at all the faces watching him. If there's anything I want you to take from this, it's this. You don't have to build a foundation or start a nonprofit or do something huge to make a difference. You just have to see the person in front of you, really see them. And if they need help and you can give it, do. Don't wait for the perfect moment or the ideal circumstances. Just do it. Because that small act might be the thing that saves them, that reminds them they're human, that gives them hope. Nathan stepped back from the podium. Thank you. The room erupted in applause. Nathan stood there overwhelmed until Claire came up and hugged him. Then Paul. Then a dozen other people. All of them thanking him, telling him how much the program had meant to them or their employees or their communities. Jamie pushed through the crowd and grabbed Nathan's hand. Dad, you were really good. You think? Yeah, even though you said, like 50 times. Nathan laughed and picked his son up even though he was getting too big for it. Thanks, buddy. I needed that. After the conference ended, after everyone had left, Nathan and Claire stood on the hotel's rooftop terrace, looking out at the city. The sun was setting, turning the glass buildings gold and orange. You did good today, Claire said. I just told the truth. That's why it was good. She turned to face him. Nathan, I want you to know something. Whatever happens with the foundation, whatever comes next, none of it diminishes what you did in that alley. You helped me when I was nobody. When helping me got you nothing, that's what mattered. Everything else is just us trying to honor that. Nathan nodded. I know. Do you? Because sometimes I think you still don't understand how rare you are. How rare that kind of uncomplicated kindness is. It wasn't that complicated. You were cold. I had coffee. End of story. Claire smiled. That's exactly what I mean. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city light up as night fell. Finally, Nathan said, You know what the weirdest part of all this is? What? I feel like I got more out of it than you did. You got your company back, yeah, but I got a whole new life. A job that matters. Financial stability. Hope. All because I brought you coffee. You didn't get that because you brought me coffee. You got it because you're the kind of person who brings coffee to strangers in alleys. That's the difference. Nathan thought about that. Maybe she was right. Maybe the life he had now wasn't a reward for one good deed. Maybe it was the natural consequence of being someone who tried to help when he could, who saw people when others looked away, who believed that small acts mattered even when the world tried to convince him otherwise. If that was true, then the lesson wasn't about doing good things to get good outcomes. It was about being a good person and trusting that eventually, somehow, that would be enough. Nathan left the hotel that night with Jamie sleeping against his shoulder, tired from the long day. They took the train home, the car swaying gently, the city sliding past the windows in streaks of light. Jamie stirred as they got off at their stop. Dad? Yeah, buddy. Are we going to be okay? Yay! Yeah, we're going to be okay. Promise? Nathan kissed the top of his son's head. Promise. They walked home through the warm spring night, past the closed shops and the scattered people heading to wherever they needed to be. Nathan thought about the man he'd given coffee to last winter, about the woman who'd cried in the cafe, about all the people out there right now who were cold or hungry or scared or alone. He couldn't help all of them. Nobody could. But he could help the ones in front of him, and he could build systems that helped others do the same. And he could tell his story in the hope that it inspired someone somewhere to stop and see another person's need as more important than their own convenience. That was enough. It had to be enough. Because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to survive in a world that's often brutal and unfair and indifferent to our struggles. The only thing that makes it bearable is knowing that sometimes, once in a while, someone will see us, really see us, and decide we're worth helping. Nathan had been seen. He'd been helped. And now he spent his days trying to make sure others were seen and helped too. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't enough. But it was something. And something, he'd learned, was infinitely better than nothing. The apartment was warm when they got home. Nathan tucked Jamie into bed, then stood in the doorway for a moment, just watching his son sleep. He thought about all the nights he'd stood in this same spot, terrified about tomorrow, wondering how he was going to keep them afloat. Those nights felt like someone else's life now. Nathan went to the kitchen and made tea. While the water boiled, he looked at the calendar on the fridge. Tomorrow he had 3 meetings, 2 calls with partner businesses, and a draft article to finish. His life was busy in ways it never used to be, but it was also full in ways it never used to be. The water boiled. Nathan made his tea and sat at the table, and he allowed himself to feel something he'd been afraid to feel for a very long time. Grateful. Not because everything was perfect. It wasn't. He still had hard days and moments of doubt, and times when the weight of other people's struggles felt crushing. But he was grateful anyway. Grateful for second chances. Grateful for the stranger in the alley who turned out to be so much more. Grateful for the life they'd built together, brick by brick, coffee by coffee, kindness by kindness. Outside, the city kept moving. People were struggling, surviving, hoping. And somewhere out there, maybe someone was doing a small, kind thing for someone else. Maybe they'd never know where it led. Maybe it wouldn't lead anywhere at all. But maybe, just maybe, it would change everything. Nathan finished his tea, turned off the lights, and went to bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new people to help, new ways to mess up and learn and try again. But tonight, he just slept. And that was enough.